Good morning, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you may be. Welcome to another episode of Hanging with Dr. Cooper. I am your host, Dr. William Cooper, and we are live. I usually tell you guys live in 5, but unfortunately, I'm a little behind. My allergies are acting up this morning. I want to thank you all first of all for being a part of Hanging with Dr. Cooper and being patient with me over the last several weeks. We started a series where we were actually taping the show, but what I got feedback is that you guys really like to have me on live. So we're back live. And so we're going to do it the way Coop does it. So thank you so much for hanging with Dr. Cooper. As you all remember, we do 4 things on this show. We motivate, we inspire, we inform, we educate, and we transform. And today my guest is Dr. Michele Voeltz. Michele is a interventional cardiologist, colleague, friend, and I'm still learning about my friends. It's amazing to me what social media has done in terms of knowing, people, you've known them for 15, 20 years, and yet you really don't know them. And so my guest today is Dr. Michele Voeltz. She is an interventional cardiologist at Northside Hospital and Northside Health here in Atlanta, but she's much more than that. Michele, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So now, Michele, we don't, on Hanging with Dr. Cooper, HWDC, we don't read long bios and all of that because that is an advertisement, but everybody has a story. So I'd like for you, quite frankly, if you don't mind, just take a few minutes. This is your time. Tell us about Michele, where you came from, your upbringing, education, and those kinds of things.
So I was born an undisclosed number of years ago in Detroit, Michigan.
Oh, in D-Town. I love it.
Spent my childhood in the Detroit area, went to college and medical school at the University of Michigan, and finished up there in the year 2000. Came down to Emory, and I think I met you right about that time.
Yep, that's right.
As I started my training, I did my internal medicine, cardiology, and interventional cardiology training at Emory University down here in Atlanta. And then I stayed on faculty there for about 4 years. And then I sort of got the call to move back home, back to Michigan. So packed up my family, packed up my things, moved back to Michigan, and spent 9 years at Henry Ford in Detroit, which, by the way, is a fantastic institution in a very cold place. And so I was no longer cut out for those Detroit winters. And so
great people, great product, horrible placement.
Absolutely. If they could move Henry Ford to Hawaii, I'd still be there. And
there you go.
So then I packed everybody up and we moved back down here about a year ago. And I joined the Northside Cardiovascular Institute with some amazing people and amazing partners. And we're trying to make a difference for the Atlanta community.
Great. Now, Michele, tell me, let's back up a little bit. So interventional cardiology, I mean, there's a lot in between coming from Detroit and all the way here. So tell me, I mean, what motivated you to get into medicine in the first place?
Actually, that's kind of an interesting story. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a Supreme Court justice.
How about that?
My goal. I wanted to be
You still can be, by the way. You still can be, by the way. I'm going to vote for you for that.
I can. I'd need somebody to pay for law school and feed my children. And I had a counselor in high school, and I sort of shared these dreams with this counselor. But I also said, hey, they have this program at the University of Michigan. They take 40 people a year. You get in, and you go to college, and then you go to med school, all in one fell swoop. And he said, well, you probably better just stick to a local law school because you'll never get in. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. What did you say? And of course, being of the doctor personality, I said, no, I think I better try to get in. And so I got into the program, and that's how I ended up in medicine. But interestingly, it's a fantastic fit for me. It's exactly the career I hoped it would be.
Yeah, you turn your hater into a motivator. I like that. I love that. I mean, I had that experience in high school. And it's amazing to me, the mentality and personality of people who you sit in a position to influence and you would choose to influence them negatively.
Yeah.
That's really, really very, very sad. But quite frankly, that's great because we have you here now. So tell me about the University of Michigan. Were you there when the Fab Five were there, or was that after you?
The Fab Five won the championship in '93, and that's the year I went to the University of Michigan. So I just followed up the Fab Five. I got to spend a little quality time with those guys, great guys. And then I was there for the '97 football championship, and so 2 years at the University of Michigan.
How about that? The big UM, as my buddy, our buddy Art Rain says. Let me ask you this, Michele. Yeah, the real UM. Let me ask you this. So medicine now, we know you got that, and then, but what about, how did you get into this heart thing? How did you end up deciding that you wanted to do cardiology?
I was always fascinated by the heart, how it works. It's logical. It makes sense. You do A, you expect B. And I liked that. But also, I was fascinated by procedures. I considered cardiothoracic surgery and actually did a rotation with the surgeons up at the University of Michigan. And I decided that I was too short and my bladder was too small for cardiothoracic. Therefore,
it's okay. You can keep it real here.
Interventional cardiology seems like the way to go.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So now you did your interventional. That's why I met you here in Atlanta, I think. And were you married at that time?
I was married when I started my fellowship. And then my first husband passed away just after I finished my interventional cardiology fellowship. Yeah.
And he was a urologist, right?
He was a urologist. That's correct.
Wow. Yeah. I remember meeting him. Great guy. So Michele, what's the most, if you think about interventional cardiology, some of the stuff that we do is pretty dramatic. You guys go in first in the middle of the night and somebody's having a heart attack and you get the STEMI call, you see that EKG come across your cell phone and okay, we got to go to the cath lab. They do the activation. You get there. What goes through your mind when that happens? Just tell us what goes through your mind. I can tell you what goes through my mind when you guys call me and say, "Coop, sorry."
So, the first thing that you have to do is you have to forget about everything that you're doing. You have to forget about the t-ball game that you were at, or the piano recital, or the meeting that you were in the middle of, and you have to focus entirely on the patient.
Yeah.
You really have to block out everything else. And for me, I go in, I meet the patient, and I try to focus on the patient's humanity. This is somebody's dad, somebody's sister, somebody's uncle. And I try with everything I do to treat that patient exactly the way that I would want my family member treated.
Yeah. I started years ago, really, rather than just thinking about, this is interrupting or getting in the way of whatever. My philosophy on that is that when that phone rings, I think about it this way: is there somebody on the other end of that line who needs your help?
Yes.
Who has thought so much about, maybe not even a lot. They don't have to even think. Maybe it's become so habitual that, and you've become such an ingrained part of what they do and what you all do. And when they pick up that phone and they call you and say, I got whatever, it's not, I got this or whatever, so I focus in on the fact that there's somebody on the other end of that call that needs my help. And it's not the person who you're talking to. It's that person who's lying in the bed, who can't talk in some cases, who really needs your help. So I think that's very important. And I focus in on that because I know there are a lot of young physicians who follow me and who listen to some of the things I say. And I think one of the challenges that young physicians have is communicating and talking to people and just being real and changing your perspective. You've been through this, how jaded you are. And, you're just happy to be in the damn party. You know what I mean? And so I know there are a lot of young physicians who listen to this, but take a step back, take a deep breath. It's okay. The sun's going to shine tomorrow. There's somebody on the other end of that phone call that needs your help. Now, Michele, you're an interventional cardiologist. So that means you put in stents to coronary arteries. You do a lot of other fancy things that don't require surgery on the heart. That's what I do. So when you need somebody to open the chest, you call me or someone like me. What you do is literally almost surgery without actually cutting anyone. So tell us really what interventional explain to the audience what interventional cardiology is and some of the scope and of things that you do as an interventional cardiologist.
So interventional cardiology is what we call percutaneous intervention. So it means everything we do goes through the skin, through a small hole or incision in the skin. We put in a catheter that allows us to access the arteries, the veins, and then we use those arteries to get to the heart and open up any blockages that we find in the heart. We can also percutaneously or through the skin close holes in the heart, open up valves, and insert mechanical heart devices that will support the heart's function.
Yeah. So Michele, let me ask you this: on a normal routine kind of day, what would you say in terms of how many times you do that a day?
It depends on the day, but we may do 8 or 10 cases a day. If I'm on call, I may do 2 or 3 emergencies at night. Mm-hmm. And to go back a little bit to what you said earlier, you get that call and somebody on the other end needs you. And it's important to remember that this might be the 1,000th emergency or the 10,000th emergency that you've taken care of, but it's somebody's only mom.
That's right. There's no doubt about that. Somebody's only sister or brother or whatever relationships they may have. You're absolutely right about that. Hey, thank you all. We're going to pause for the calls for a moment. You're HWDC. You're hanging with Dr. Cooper. I am your host, Dr. William Cooper. I'm back live in color, literally, and in person. And you are here today with my good friend, colleague, Dr. Michele Voeltz, who is a interventional cardiologist here in Atlanta at Northside Hospital. And she is discussing her career as an interventional cardiologist. And I chose Michele several weeks back because she is literally not only a top doc, I've known that for over 20 years now, but she is also a top mom. And this is the day before Mother's Day. And so this is a very special Mother's Day edition of Hanging with Dr. Cooper. And the reason I chose her as a mom is because in her very, very busy life, I was sitting in front of my TV several weeks back, and I saw her pop up on the screen and WSB, and she was doing an interview talking about adoption. Now, I knew Michele was married in the past when I first met her, and her husband unfortunately is deceased now, urologist. They were a young, beautiful couple working at Emory and at Wellstar and moving through their career and having kids and doing all the other things that all of us do. But what I didn't know, this story was about adoption. And just so you all know the facts, just a little bit high level, Michele knows it a lot better than I do, that there's, roughly at any one point in time, 500,000 kids in the U.S. Who are awaiting adoption. And there are even probably at least another 750,000 to 1 million that are going through foster care or pending foster care. And for her to be an interventional cardiologist and to do what she has done, I'm gonna let her tell you, in terms of adoption and then taking care of her own children, that makes her my number one top mom for 2021. So Michele, tell us and me and the audience a little bit about, there's a story there that has to be, and it's amazing. When I saw you, I was like, whoa. I was sitting there on the couch and I said, my wife, I know her. And you and your sister, is it 9 children? 10?
We have 9.
9 children in your so now we get ready to break them down, because they were hearing all this stuff about getting up in the middle of the night, having to rush in and save somebody's life. And you got babies at home, and babies, quite frankly, biologically, that are not all yours, but it doesn't matter because biology doesn't mean anything when it comes to the heart. So tell us about this whole story. This is amazing.
So early on in my career, like many female physicians, I struggled with infertility. And my first husband and I adopted my oldest child domestically. And then shortly thereafter, he passed away.
Mhm.
And I was remarried and had my second son, a surprise biological child that sort of came out of nowhere and continues to be a surprise every day.
The gift that keeps on giving.
The gift that keeps on giving is exactly right.
Yes.
And then we went on to adopt my daughter, who's now 8. And after that, I got divorced. And, you know, like many people after a divorce, I was sort of lost. I had this vision of, you know, a family and a mom and a dad and kids and how things were going to go. And all of a sudden, everything was. And so I needed to refocus my energy. And really, I needed to find what spoke to me. I needed to find something that gave my life and my mission meaning and frankly gave it legs, right? We all have ideas about what we want to do to help, but we don't always get the opportunity to implement them.
Right.
My sister had been fostering for quite some time, and she actually had 4 foster children at around the time that I got divorced. And her youngest was just so cute. And I felt so immediately connected to her. Well, when her youngest foster daughter was about 3 months old, we found out that mom was pregnant with twins.
Wow.
We knew that those twins were not going to be able to go home with mom, that she wasn't in a situation to be able to care for them at that point.
Okay.
And so my sister said, listen, I need you to get licensed so that you can take these twins because we can't split these kids up. We've got 3 kids that are going to be 10 months apart. And you know, we've got to make sure that they're all together. And she and I lived separately at the time, but we were very close to one another. And so I got licensed and I took the twins and had them for about a year and a half. And unfortunately, their parents were tragically killed.
Oh, wow.
So then all 3 of the little ones became available for adoption, and I adopted all 3 of them. And we've continued to foster. We actually stopped when we moved to Georgia because the Georgia laws are a little bit different from Michigan laws, and they have a cap on the number of children under you can have in the house. And that cap is 8. We've got 9 together. She's got 3 that she adopted from foster care. I have my 3 that I had previously, and then the 3 that I adopted from foster care. And so we were over that 8-child limit. But we've continued to be very active in the foster community and, you know, foster closets and anything that we can do to help.
Oh, my God. I mean, you know, that really, I mean, this story is just, I mean, it's amazing to me. I mean, you know, as selfish as I am, and I'm sure everybody else out here is, in thinking about, you know, how I complain about, you know, my 4 biological children and all the things that we had to do over the years. We're empty nesters now to care for them. It just, I mean, you took that on. So Michele, let's take me a little bit deeper. I mean, your sister was in it. You talked earlier about finding that thing, that passion. What was it that you found in this, in the foster care, in the adoption, beyond the emotional piece? Because I know you're just a wonderful, giving, loving person. Was there something else? Was there something that was fulfilling in that for you that went beyond just, you know, this is the right thing to do? Was there something more to it?
I think there's always something more.
Yeah.
I think the idea, you know, children have so much potential. And children they're all the same. And I tell my kids all the time, you guys just happen to be born to the right people in the right place. But really, there's no difference between these kids and our biological children, with the exception of needing a chance. And the same with their parents as well. I have one foster daughter that was with me for 3 years, and her mom clawed and struggled her way to improve herself and improve the situation, and ended up getting her kids back. And that's rewarding too. So I really think it's the idea that, you know, you turn around and you extend your hand to someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and Michele, I must say this. I must say this because I think this is extremely important. And it's me being jaded by our culture and our society, but a professional woman of color who has done this at the level that you have done it, to me is really impressive, because you have so many other challenges, quite frankly. We didn't even get into all of the challenges that you've had to face being a woman of color in an industry that is changing. You're getting more and more female or women interventional cardiologists. But to do that, and then now to have this focus on fostering children, which I know every one of the women of color who are on this live stream right now would feel the same way, because they are facing all of the challenges that our women of color have been facing for a number of years. The lack of, quite frankly, in some cases, eligible men of color because of other reasons. But that to me was just, it was really, really very, very remarkable. And I had no idea. Let me just tell you this, and all the time I've known you, I would never have known this about you unless it was for that story on WSB, and that speaks volume. Now we work together at Emory and all this other stuff, but I say that just to say that you don't wear your personal life on your shoulder in your white coat. You don't do that. And that's just fantastic to me. And so that's a little bit of Coop commentary. But I want to just pause for the calls here. You are HWDC, hashtag Hanging with Dr. Cooper. I'm your host, Dr. William Cooper. Thank you all out there. I have to give a few shout outs to my wife, Sandy, Patrice, Greer, representing the Greer fiefdom, Pam Found, Belinda Carter, Hillary Dunson. Who's that? Oh, Carmen Watkins. How you doing, Carmen? Kim Cole. Hey, Art Rains, how you doing?
Hi, Art.
Michelle, Art says hello. Great cardiology, you better person, fellow. I knew he's going to mention fellow U of Michigan Medical School graduate. Go big boy.
The real U of M.
The real U of M. So we're talking to Dr. Michele Voeltz, is my guest, my friend and colleague. D Banks, I see you. Cora Borders. Hey, how you doing? Checking in from the home front. We're hanging with Dr. Cooper. We're talking to Dr. Michele Voeltz. Michele is a interventional cardiologist here at Northside Health in Atlanta, but also she is a foster mom. She has adopted children. She and her sister have 9 children in their home, and I just think this is just fantastic work. Michele, tell us, what are the ages of the children?
So my kids are 15, 11, 8, 5, 4, and 4.
Wow.
My sisters are 10, 7, and 7.
Oh my goodness. So tell me what a Saturday morning like today is like.
Actually, they were on the trampoline until much too late last night. And so it's still pretty quiet in the house.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I'm hopeful that it stays this way for a little while, but we'll see.
Oh, that's okay. I would love to have one of them join us. I mean, that's fantastic. So all the usual activities, school, what is a typical weekday like for you all?
So I'm lucky enough to have a nanny who's fantastic. Okay. So she comes in the morning and gets everybody up and ready, gets the kids to school, keeps the little ones at home. Although next year everybody will be in school, so that'll be a change. Okay. And she holds down the fort, picks everybody up from school, and when I get home, my sister or I make dinner and take care of homework, projects, the oh by the ways, I like to call them. Oh, by the way, I'm supposed to bring 24 cupcakes to school tomorrow. Oh, by the way, I have a poster project due on Rosa Parks. And we tuck everybody in for bed.
How about that? What are they into? Are they into like so they're external? So that's kind of the usual kid stuff. Are they into like external stuff, ballet, soccer, t-ball, whatever, baseball?
So everybody, of course, has different interests. We could never get anybody on the same train. So today we have 2 playing t-ball and 1 playing baseball, and that's just because the softball season is over. We usually have a softball game or 2 on Saturdays as well. And then I've got a couple that play football. We have one that's very interested in horseback riding. I've been trying to avoid it because it's really expensive, but she's probably gonna talk me into it. Yeah. And a couple of dancers, and so everybody's all over the place.
Wow. Wow. And then of course, if you were on call last night, you got to get called in to do the STEMI, which, is inevitable. I mean, it's just truly amazing. So I'm sure having your sister and you do this in tandem is really quite a partnership.
Oh, it's very important. You have to have a
Yeah.
village.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things when we moved down here from Michigan that was hard for us, because we did have a large village up there of friends who fostered as well. And, we could exchange kids and help each other out. And so we're reestablishing that down here.
Got it. So tell us a little bit, give us some of the stats. I sort of threw out some high level stuff just from my reading, but tell us about what's going on in the adoption foster care system in the state of Georgia and across the country.
So the foster care system across the country is desperately in need of reform. There are a disproportionate number of Black children in foster care. There are a disproportionate number of Hispanic children in foster care. On top of that, we've got the issues at the border where children are being separated from their families. And so really there's just an incredible number of kids that need help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tell us. So, in the state of Georgia right now, pending, how do you go from? I guess because you described a scenario which I really haven't thought about a lot, which is foster sort of as a period of time, and then the parents get themselves together or the other family members or whatever, and then the kids go back. So, explain a little bit about that spectrum from foster care to adoption and how that sort of evolves and how the system determine where the kids are going to lie in that.
The goal of foster care is always reunification.
Okay.
The goal is always to return the children to their families of origin. Sometimes that's possible, sometimes it's not. About 60% of kids who enter foster care will end up being adopted.
Wow.
And so, unfortunately, at this point, the difficulty is how long to let the process go on. So is it okay for a child to be in foster care for 3 years and then return to their family of origin? Or does that do them a disservice? When does biology, when is it outweighed by time? And it's a really difficult situation. In many cases, foster parents are middle class, and you're comparing sort of apples to oranges when you look at a foster home versus a home of origin or a biological home,
Okay.
right? You may be taking parents who are of limited means, and then their children go into foster care, and all of a sudden their kids are going to Disney World, twice a year and having all of these experiences. And when they are evaluating the family of origin, it becomes very difficult to not make comparisons.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think, nobody really knows the best thing. We think that it's best for kids to be with their biological families, but we also acknowledge that that's not always possible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in the foster care system, we are lacking Black foster families. And so in many cases, the children who are awaiting adoption are children who are Black or who may be older, who have emotional difficulties, have mental health disorders, physical disorders. And it can be very difficult to find appropriate homes for those children.
Yeah, that's, and I'm glad you said it, because I take that as a call to action for African American families and parents who who have the means and who have a heartstring, quite frankly, in my opinion, to do this, because sometimes it's not about the means. You'll figure it out. It's just about, and to me, I think sometimes it just gets down to the very basics of having a very loving, open, and compassionate side of you that wants to do this. And then the universe is going to take care of the rest. Your village is going to help you take care of that child, because so many people, but we're not, quite frankly, I think, I'm just going to, and this is just kind of a tangential comment, but I think sometimes in at least from my observation in the African American community, is that we are so used to grandma, auntie, uncle, or somebody else taking the kids that we fail to realize that for every auntie, uncle, grandma, grandpa that can't or is not there to take those kids end up in the system. And so I think it's very important for you to raise that to, this conversation about the fact that we have and a majority or a disproportionate number of children of color in the foster care system, and a disproportionate number of, or a lack thereof, of other races and ethnicities and cultures who are actually putting themselves in a position to be able to foster or even adopt those children. So Michele, just pause for the calls. Glow Brooks, how you doing? G Low, how's it going? Y'all at HWDC. You're hanging with Dr. Cooper. Yes, I'm back. This is actually the second Saturday of May. I apologize for last week. We had a scheduling glitch, but I had planned this one anyway with my good friend and colleague and top doc, but more importantly, even top mom, Dr. Michele Voeltz, who's an interventional cardiologist and also a foster parent and has adopted children, has her own children, and is just a remarkable professional woman of color who is basically taking it upon herself to make a difference in this world through the foster system. How you doing, Miss Greer? Lois Greer. Hi, hello there. Pam Brown, I see you. Belinda Carter, I didn't say hello earlier. You're one of the first ones to jump on. Thank you so much. And you all are hanging with Dr. Cooper. Again, I really appreciate you being here. Michele, tell us about the impact of the foster care system and adopting. So what I mean by that is versus, kids who, how does foster care prevent kids from getting in the system on, because what I see is, and what I think occurs is that if you don't foster them, then ultimately they're going to end up in a very bad negative situation, criminal justice system, trafficking, other illegal activities. So the impact of foster care and adoption on the ultimate outcome, and when I say the ultimate outcome, but I mean getting them to adulthood so they can be of an age where they can make their own decisions.
I think the impact of foster care on all of those things is tremendous. First of all, you have to go back to looking at childhood adverse events, right? We know that every adverse event that you suffer in childhood increases the likelihood that you will have mental, emotional, legal, and physical problems. So every child who comes from a home in which drugs are being used, or they are witnessing abuse, or they are suffering abuse, all of those things take its toll mentally and physically on the body. And I think we really have to be very careful. These kids need a soft place to land. Everybody needs a soft place to land. And they need a home. They need somebody who cares about them. They need to know that they're going to get regular meals and that they're going to have a place to sleep. And most importantly, they need to know that even when they screw up, because they will screw up, because we all screw up, that there's somebody in their corner, somebody who is fighting for them, somebody who wants better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really amazing. We hear the stories, through social media now. You hear the success stories. You hear the people who sort of made it through the system and they end up doing very fantastic things and going on to be very productive contributors to our society. But yet, as I sit here and we're having this conversation, I know that there's kids out there right now who are still just wayward. They're just out there. I mean, and it's truly amazing. I'm going to have some guests on later later this year who are going to talk about their experiences having been trafficked. But that they're getting into all of these abnormal situations, and yet, our system creates these bureaucracies, quite frankly. I mean, and what I'm getting to here is that you mentioned very early on in this conversation the differences in the regulatory environment for foster care adoption in Michigan and that here in Georgia. So what I take from that is that there's really not been any leadership or national sort of mandate or policy around this issue since, except, this border situation that we keep, this false, invasion that people keep talking about. So it sounds to me like there's really on the national level, there's not a lot of movement or initiatives to really set some boundaries around this. Am I missing something there, or is that the case?
Foster care is very much a state issue. It has been left in the hands of the states, and so for that reason, you will find a tremendous difference in how foster care is run from one state to another. And you're right, there is very little national regulation. And I think that goes back to funding issues. It goes back to money, as always.
Yeah. Because
the states fund foster care, then they run the programs. But there's so much variability. You may have family in one state who's trying to get custody of a child, of a family member, and it may take them months or even years to accomplish that just because the child will have to cross state lines. And there's a lot of communication from state to state.
Yeah. I mean, and I know you hesitated when you said it because I know it gives you pain. It's funding, it's money. And that's a shame. It really is a shame that we put money in the way of doing the right thing. In fact, somebody just asked, Belinda Carter just asked, how does she adopt her little sister, Miss Michelle? It depends on where you are, Belinda, but which helps me transition to the next topic, which is, how do people get involved with this? What should those of us who want to support, perhaps financially, the foster care system? We talked a little bit about, money is always welcome. But also, if we have people out there that want to get involved and actually become a foster parent or even adopt, where should we go for credible information?
It's surprisingly easy to get involved. Really, all you have to do is call your local Department of Children and Family Services office, which they're generally county run. So you call your county DHS or DCFS office and you tell them that you're interested. They usually will have an introductory program where you go for a couple of 3-hour courses, essentially, where they tell you the good and the bad and the ugly of foster care. And then you decide whether or not you want to move forward. If you decide to move forward with accepting children, then they will come and they'll evaluate your home. They'll evaluate everybody who lives there to make sure that it's a safe environment. They'll make sure that you have adequate space for a child, that you are adequate financially, so that you wouldn't be dependent on any payments from the state to raise the child. And if all of that clears, then you get a foster license.
Yeah, and then of course they will do obviously all the background checks on you and everyone else in the environment there. If you have, say, let me ask you, is that the same process? Because here's one of the things that I thought was a loophole, because I've heard from friends who've told me this, is it the same process if the caretaker is going to be a family member?
So if the caretaker is a family member, there are fewer regulations that you have to go through. Okay. They will do the legal evaluation. They'll make sure that you don't have any felonies or any child abuse charges in the past. But they don't always do what's called the full home study. However, in most states, if you want to receive reimbursement for having the child in your home, then you have to complete a full home study. You can take a child on kinship without completing a full home study, but then you don't get any of the benefits.
Yeah. So, because we're gonna, as I said, later this year, I've guests who are lined up who are going to talk about their experience, who actually went into a fairly hostile and negative environment of a family member where they were sexually abused, even where they thought they were going to be safe, and that's unfortunate. So I'm gonna make an assumption in that case that there was not this full sort of evaluation of when it was just kind of, okay, mom, dad are incapacitated or whatever, go stay with aunt, uncle, and they end up finding themselves in a situation where they are even more vulnerable to other types of abuse. So,
unfortunately, that happens frequently in foster care, where
yeah.
children go from one undesirable situation to another undesirable or maybe even worse situation.
Yeah. Thank you all out there in HWDC land. You are hanging with Dr. Cooper. I'm your host, Dr. William Cooper. Thank you all so much out in YouTube land. James Beasley, Pam Brown, Belinda Carter, G. Lowe, Teresa Ross. I see you. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate your support. Share, like, subscribe, listen. Share, like, subscribe, listen. Share, like, subscribe, listen. SLSL. Because that's the way that eventually I can get this thing to pay for itself, and particularly on YouTube, because once we get to a certain number of hours and subscribers, this thing will handle itself. I really enjoy doing this. This is my passion. Michele is really introducing my audience, the world, in some cases, hopefully to people like you who very likely they would otherwise not meet. Michele Voeltz is a interventional cardiologist. So just to put that in a different light, when you go into the emergency room and you're having your heart attack in the middle of the night, the emergency room doctor is going to call somebody like Michele. And, hey, Holly, how you doing? Good to see you. They're going to call an interventional cardiologist like Michele. She's going to come in and she's going to access those blood vessels on the surface of your heart and put in a balloon or a stent or do whatever else. Any kind of device that needs to support your heart and help you recover. And on a very, very rare occasion, she would perhaps not be able to do that because of some other reason. And she would call me, and then I would come in and do the surgery. So that's what Michele does. She's that cardiologist who can intervene without cutting your chest open and help you out and get you out of a very bad situation. But she's a top doc, and the focus of our conversation here today has been the fact that she's a top mom, because in her very, very busy life as an interventional cardiologist, she is also a foster parent. So Michele, what's next? What's next? You got 9 kids. You're one over the limit in Georgia. I mean, are you all gonna? I mean, what's the future of this for you?
Well, so right now, I'm going to continue to try to get these kids raised. Mm-hmm. My kids have sort of a variety of different exposures to drugs and other traumatic events. Yeah. And so we work through those. We spend a lot of time at the school and getting IEPs set up and 504 plans and making sure everybody has what they need. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to continue to raise these kids, and I'm going to continue to work on my passions clinically. In addition to interventional cardiology, I run a large cardio obstetrics practice. So I focus on the reduction of maternal mortality and caring for women who have heart disease in pregnancy. And then finally, I am actually, and you and I talked a little bit before we started about the challenge with balancing working for an institution and providing the type of care that we want to provide. And so I'm trying to move a mountain and change the institution, because one of my other focuses is developing culturally competent care so that we can correct some of the disparities that we see among our Black patients, our poor patients, our non-primary English-speaking patients, and we can reach them with medical care rather than waiting for them to come to us.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. Michele, you got a lot going on. I thought I was busy. My goodness. I mean, I thought I was busy, and but all of those things, I would tell you, just I would say from experience and from don't never lose your fight.
Oh, no.
But sometimes you may have to take the battle to a different battlefield, and sometimes you may have to get them on your battlefield to put them at a little bit of a distance. You got to have the home field advantage sometimes. So just think about that. You and I can talk about that offline later. But
we're not patient people in general.
We're not.
And,
oh gosh.
and so we have to learn to appreciate small victories and small changes, because we
Yes.
didn't get where we are in medicine, in the world, overnight, and we're not
Yes.
going to do some of these things overnight.
Yeah. So here's, I don't want to let the audience miss that, because we have a lot of moms to be, and young people who listen into this. And even if they're not on there right now, they're going to listen later. Michele is, one of her areas of clinical interest is maternal cardiovascular disease. So that means our obstetrical cardio. So in other words, when you're pregnant, there's a subset of people when of women when they're pregnant that will develop, in some cases, unknown cardiovascular issues, heart failure, valvular heart disease, ischemic coronary artery disease. Some hearts can't tolerate the volume changes, and you'll go into congestive heart failure. So Michele has a particular interest in that. So if you know women out there who, it's particularly in the city of Atlanta, you all call me and text me as if I know. And if I don't know, you all know that what I will do is I will try to find somebody who can help you. But Michele has a particular interest in heart disease during pregnancy. So let all of your friends, children, daughters, granddaughters, yourself, whoever, know that, because this is very, very important resource. I have found in my past life at Emory, I oftentimes was the only person who had any interest in that, because my buddy Eric Brown would call me to the would deliver babies in the cardiac surgery operating room, because he had nobody. It's like, Coop, if we need surgery right away, I was like, Eric, we won't need any surgery right away like that. But I mean, I understand, but it's great to have someone like you who has this particular interest in that, and who can study that and help women get through and families get through those very difficult times. Michele, this has been fantastic. Hashtag HWDC, hanging with Dr. Cooper. And I appreciate all of you out there in my audience. D. Banks, she should be a CNN hero. You're absent. So Dr. D. Banks is infectious disease up in Ohio. And so you're right. She should be a CNN hero. I learned about this, D, because I happened to be sitting in my living room during this whole COVID thing, and I'm watching the TV, and I see my friend Michele, and she's talking about adoption and foster. I was like, "What? Wait a second!" And I think I texted you. Did I text you immediately?
You did.
I said, Michele, hey, wait a minute! I didn't know this.
Where all those kids come from?
I was like, 9 children. My God, you're right. She should be a CNN hero. So let's get that going. Let's start texting somebody or inboxing, DMing somebody over at CNN, because this is really amazing. And so often, during this period of time, and we want to honor our mothers, and you are really an inspiration to all. I know 100% of the mothers out there, because everybody on this stream right now, the women are all mothers. But you really are a hero, and it's amazing. But oftentimes during this period of time, and I'm not discrediting that or devaluing the importance of the downtrodden, rags to riches kind of mom story. But you are truly just and more than a regular kind of individual, but someone's just, hey, from Detroit, went to medical school, interventional cardiologist, tragedy early on and with your first marriage and all these other things, but who is just a professional person living a normal American life and just got into this thing. And that, to me, is we need to ring the bell on that, start shouting through the bullhorn on just people like yourself who are out there doing remarkable things with the resources that they have every single day. They didn't come from rags to riches or from the damn street corner or whatever else, but they just did it, and they just did it the right way. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so I really appreciate you. I appreciate what you have done as a professional, and also with the foster care situation. Michele, how does our audience get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you? I'm going to type it in the comments if you're okay with that. So
my Twitter handle is HeartDoc and Crew.
HER Doc and Crew. Okay. On Twitter. I got to put the little @ symbol in front of that because.
Yep, same with Instagram. My Instagram is the same.
Oh,
and Michele Voeltz is my professional Facebook page.
okay. And ELTZ on Facebook. Perfect. And I'm hitting enter, and it is out there in the comments. So y'all know how to get a hold of Michele. Y'all support Michele. Michele, do you from time to time tell us a little bit? Are you going to keep us up to date on what's going on in the foster community?
Absolutely.
Do you do that? I know you
Absolutely.
do. I mean, it's truly amazing, and I'm pretty sure that some of these professional women that watch my show are going to be reaching out to you because your story is remarkable. I'm sorry if you're going to start getting inundated with requests to come and talk and speak and all those other things, but you should, quite frankly. You know, it really, it's an extension of who you are. And I really want to thank you once again for being on the show, Hanging with Dr. Cooper. Remember, friends, that today is the best day of your life. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow is not promised. And all we have is right now. Live well, be well. Thank you very much for hanging with Dr. Cooper. We'll see you next time. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Take care, everybody. And happy Mother's Day to all the fantastic, wonderful mothers out there.